Episode 76. Blue River was indeed a rare talent among players. The rising slash was perfectly executed. The blade arrived before the swordsman did, delivering a beautiful aerial follow-up to the goblin merchant mid-flight. Tianxi and his crew probably couldn't have pulled off a move like that. Blue River followed up with a triple slash, a blade master skill that combined attack and movement. The character slid forward in a flash. Before the goblin could fully land, swiftly 3 streaks of sword light slashed through the air, and 3 sprays of blood erupted. Blue River's sword swept through empty air again, his upward slash skill ready to launch the goblin skyward. But then, a strangely shaped battle lance thrust out from his flank. Blue River's heart clenched at the sight of the strange spear. He shifted his view and saw it was indeed Lord Grim. Sword and spear struck the goblin merchant simultaneously. Which will strike first, the swift sword or the long spear? Was it me? Blue River felt his drawn sword, and Lord Grim's thrusting spear tip had arrived at the same instant. The goblin took the hit, but was lifted even higher. Lord Grim's spear plunged in, and the goblin merchant was immediately yanked into a half-circle arc, slammed down hard beside him. It was a circle swing. Both players' skills had hit the goblin merchant. Unfortunately, Lord Grim had used a grab skill. With that toss, the goblin merchant had already placed itself squarely in front of Blue River. Lord Grim's face was right before his eyes, but the character's gaze remained perpetually vacant. Blue River had no idea what Lord Grim was feeling at that moment. He only knew his own mind was perfectly calm. Without hesitation, without a second thought, he sent a horizontal slash straight at Lord Grim. Lord Grim leaped back in a great bound, dodging the slash. He half-leapt behind the prone goblin merchant, then unleashed a sudden sky strike, launching the creature into the air. A falling flower palm blasted it right after. The goblin merchant was sent flying, hurtling straight toward Blue River. That was way too fast. Now that he was facing Lord Grim directly, Blue River finally experienced just how fast this man's mechanics were. Had his backstep even finished when he used Sky Strike? To land a hit on the downed goblin merchant while still in the air, that's pinpoint accuracy. And his follow-up falling flower palm was even more unbelievable. Had the goblin merchant already been launched into the air at that moment? If the target is still downed, the falling flower palm won't have a sweeping effect. Sweeping is another type of attack state in Glory, specifically referring to follow-up attacks against a downed target. The falling flower palm is a skill that attacks straight ahead. It can't hit a target that's already on the ground. The Sky Strike was used first to launch the goblin merchant into the air. That way, the falling flower palm could actually hit it. From Blue River's perspective, Lord Grim's backstep, Sky Strike, and falling flower palm were impossibly fast. He couldn't even see if the strike had connected or if the palm had landed before the goblin merchant was already flying toward him. Blue River was no slouch. The moment the goblin merchant crashed down in front of him, he swiftly raised his sword in a block. The creature slammed into the blade, forcing Blue River to slide back a step, but he managed to stay on his feet. The priority right now isn't dealing with Lord Grim, it's securing the goblin merchant. Blue River's thinking was clear enough. He just didn't have a skill like Circle Swing to grab the goblin and throw it to the other side, putting distance between it and Lord Grim. Blue River had only one option: increase his damage output, build up aggro, and force the goblin merchant to come to him. Up, down, silver light falling blade. The poor blade master currently lacked any sweeping ground skills. He had just jumped up, his sword not even drawn, when he saw a fierce criss-crossing sword light hurtling toward him. It wasn't as fast as Blue River's, but it was far more domineering. Blue River saw a spray of blood fly from his chest, then was sent hurtling backward through the air. Only one thought echoed in Blue River's mind.
That's impossible.
He saw it clearly. Lord Grim didn't swap out his weapon from his inventory to perform that rising dragon slash. Instead, he directly drew a sharp blade from the tail end of that oddly shaped battle spear in his hand, and then, surprised, the sword was there and gone in an instant. Blue River looked again. Lord Grim's hand was empty. Had he just been seeing things? Blue River believed he hadn't, but he couldn't make heads or tails of what had just happened in that split second. Blue River didn't fall. The moment he landed, he executed a roll, using his quick recover technique to avoid hitting the ground. Now he was even farther from the goblin merchant. Blue River grew frantic and rushed forward. A loud bang, he was sent flying back again.
Damn it.
He cursed himself internally. This was his own mistake. He'd been so focused on closing in on the goblin merchant that he'd forgotten the boss would unleash a shockwave when getting up from a knockdown. Otherwise, if you were downed and surrounded, you'd never get back on your feet. The shockwave sent Blue River flying, but he executed a quick recover and stayed on his feet. Lord Grim, however, had already backstepped with practiced ease to avoid it. Lord Grim had already closed in on the goblin merchant again, and with a swift toss, he hurled the creature even farther away. Several players from Tyrannical Ambition rushed forward in a swarm. In the brief skirmish for the boss, Blue River had lost completely, but he knew this was far from over. Everyone present, including Blue Brook Guild, would never just stand by and let Tyrannical Ambition take down the goblin merchant so easily.
Are they not here yet?
Yishu steered Lord Grim back into the formation of Tyrannical Ambition, unleashing a few more swift attacks to firmly lock the goblin merchant's aggro onto himself. Only then did he ask.
They're almost here.
Night crossing Cold Pond was even more anxious than Yishu. The goblin merchant had already been lured over, but the manpower Yishu needed still wasn't in place. His own team only had one Spitfire and one Elementalist that Yishu required, and they were currently under Yishu's command, intensifying their DPS on the goblin merchant. A huge wave of players was already charging toward them, but seeing that the goblin merchant was currently in Tyrannical Ambition's hands, many hesitated for a moment. They weren't about to give up on the boss, they just hoped someone else would be the first to charge in. After all, deep down, no one really wanted a direct confrontation with Tyrannical Ambition. But not every player was so wary of Tyrannical Ambition. Blue River and his Blue Brook Guild weren't afraid in the slightest. The Blood Gunner incident was still fresh in their minds. That whole mess had been caused by the three guilds' hesitation and second-guessing. This time, Blue River was exceptionally decisive. Without a second thought, he took the lead and charged forward. A dozen or so Blue Brook Guild players had already rallied behind him, matching Tyrannical Ambition's current formation in numbers.
Scatter.
At Yishu's command, Cold Night River and the others scattered according to the positions he'd laid out. Meanwhile, Lord Grim sent the goblin merchant flying once more with another powerful falling flower palm. The Spitfire and the Elementalist moved left and right, keeping mostly hidden behind the trees, popping out to take a shot at the goblin merchant the moment their skills came off cooldown. The melee specialists, led by Night Fairy Cold Pool, didn't rush in to swarm the target. Instead, they focused on maintaining their positioning. Whenever the goblin merchant passed by a certain tree, someone would often lunge out from behind it to throw a punch or slash with a blade. Blue River was completely dumbfounded. He had never seen anyone bossing like this before.